Good morning, everyone. It's me, Stephanie Van Vark, and I am a small business owner. Welcoming you to Talking Business. Today is going to be a different kind of show. You know my friend Jennifer Behar of Jennifer's sHomemade. We met her before and talked about her business, but today's conversation is going to be sort of an extension, I guess, of conversations she and I have had about the times, the circumstances, the civil unrest, the inequality that's being discussed, and we thought it was a good way to sort of extend this conversation into an audience that really is about business development, economic development, having conversations around inequality, and what that might look like in the future in the business realm and outside of the business realm. So this is on. Today is, for those of you who don't know, is Blackout 2020. Jennifer, I'll ask you, do you know what that is?
Yes, I do.
Okay. That is just for those of you who don't know. Today is a day that's been designated as a day where we're asking all African Americans not to shop, but if you must, shop only at Black businesses. The intent is to show the power of the Black dollar. We've had to demonstrate that before. And we're also asking our partners and our other folks who support Black Lives Matter, who support Black folks, Black business, to follow suit. Not spend any money in the mainstream, but if you must, shop at a Black business in order to support Black-owned businesses and to support the economy that supports Black people. And so we decided it would be a great time for us to have a conversation around what that means. So Jennifer, I'll ask you. First of all, let me start with this. If you don't mind sharing, can you tell me your cultural, racial background? Or tell me.
So I'm white, Jewish, if that's relevant. It's funny, like sometimes you don't know, religion and culture.
Right.
I think we've often talked about that. My religion for me is almost more important culturally than it is as a religion.
Right.
So there's so much culture steeped into the Jewish population,
Right.
which in a way is very similar to the Black experience, I think, in the things that we've talked about. So yeah, that's, and my ancestors are ultimately from Germany, some Poland, some England, and a little Russian.
Okay.
But many generations ago, both sides of my family, my grandparents were born in America.
Okay.
So I grew up in Atlanta in the South.
In the South.
Went to school in Boston and lived in New York for a while. And now I'm in Miami. So I've kind of lived a lot in the East Coast and had different experiences.
Okay. Well, just historically, and I think she and I have talked about this before, during the Civil Rights Movement, actually there was an alignment really with the African American culture and the Jewish community. The Jewish community was extremely supportive during our fight for equality. Not far from where we are today, I talk about a museum where there were judges, Jewish judges, who they were threatened, actually, decided to come and serve the community, understanding it was the right fight to have. And so I think I've asked you, what has been your experience as you've gone through life, understanding the Black experience, I guess. What has been your understanding of what that experience is like?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, when I was growing up in Atlanta has a very large African American population, but it's also very separated. The neighborhoods, and and growing up, you kind of, or in my experience, didn't really think about it. It was just how it was. But as I grew up and kind of left home and lived in other cities where things are much more integrated and commingled, it stood out to me as, wow, you know. And I think a part of it is just people are comfortable and that's where they stay. But like my high school was predominantly white. It was a public high school, and we had a few African-American students, and they were our friends and part of our, but it was very few. And I don't know what their experience was like, because I didn't have a kind of relationship like you and I have, where we talked about it. And I don't know that it was something that was really talked about. I will say at the temple that I went to, that was where Martin Luther King spoke. And our temple always embraced Martin Luther King Day. We would celebrate it and invite the African American community. So we did have that. But, you know, that's very, to me, not integrated in our life. It's like a special day, you know, rather than what I think is special about our friendship. And I think our friendship has helped me to grow and learn just by walking life with you. You know, I see things that I wouldn't have seen because I can see them a little bit through your eyes.
Okay.
Just by witnessing, just by being there, just by little subtle, you know, sometimes we talk about how your reaction to something and my reaction to something might be very subtly different, and it sparks something in me. And because I'm comfortable to talk to you, we can talk about it. And I feel like I've learned and grown because of that in a wonderful way. You know, it's such a gift for me. And I've often said, like, if other people could have the kind of relationship that we have, wow, the world could be different.
I mean, I do agree. There are occasions where Jennifer and I will go walking. We walk every now and then, you know, try to get our little exercise on. And you know, something will happen, and I've grown to learn to look at things a little differently because I've had to. I heard someone in a conversation say that, you know, a Black woman, a Black man, in the span of the hour after they wake up, have a multitude of things they have to be concerned about that other cultures may never have to think about. You know, so there's sort of always this left eye over here that's always looking at things a little bit differently. So I think it's very interesting to me too, to be in a friendship with you. So when you look at things, and it's probably a lot more innocent than I might look at it. And I'm like, oh wow, that's kind of cool. That's kind of refreshing. I can't look at it that way, but that's kind of refreshing.
Right. And it wakes me up to like, wow, you know, how naive I've been. But, you know, it's fast, it's interesting.
But it's not, I mean, I guess in a way it is naive, but you know, I've said this before, and I've said this to you. This country has designed a system wherein you could potentially go through life and never have to understand how I live, but for our friendship or whatever friendship you may have had with other African Americans. I can't do that. I have to learn how to work and operate and function in your world. And so I think it's a very interesting wake-up call right now, wherein, you know, the protest has brought out an audience of people who weren't even aware of a lot of the inequities, even beyond just how the police is treating Black people, but, you know, the economy, health issues, the poverty, the disproportionate income gap. It's a powerful thing, but it's also a thing that we need to do something about. But I don't necessarily expect you to have to understand it, or correct that. I don't expect you to have been aware of it, but now that you are aware, how can you help to make the change? How can you help take that action?
Yeah, I mean, I think having conversations like this one and being brave enough to be vulnerable and ask questions. I find myself asking you a lot of questions, you know, before I do something, I'll maybe think twice. And I wanted to do something in my business, for example, and ran it by you and said, is this sensitive? Is this insensitive? This is my intention. My intention is pure and good, but is that, I don't know what my blind spots are. So by asking questions of my friends who are living it, who are African American, who can say to me, you know what, you could do this, look at this, and it helps to open my eyes. And I think continuing to have those conversations, because I don't think you're ever done. It's an ongoing, evolving thing. And I think it's important to take a minute and ask the questions. Is this appropriate? Is this what I want to represent? What I want to do? How I want to move in the world? Am I missing something? I think it's a constant asking of questions, I think, and trying to be aware.
Can I play the comparison game for a little bit?
Yeah.
One of the things that came up last night, I was fortunate enough to be a part of a watch party activity that my sorority was having. Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. We watched a movie called She Did That. It's a movie about Black female entrepreneurs who are maneuvering this landscape and the challenges we have. One of the subjects that came up was sort of the idea of investment. Black businesses getting much less in investment in fundraising than maybe white businesses. And I'm not asking for dollars and cents. That's nothing like that. But may I ask, when you started your business, did you have resources and the types of resources to really help you advance your business a little bit more so, as opposed to maybe me?
Maybe. I mean, when I started, I had no funding. But I had access to credit cards. So I was given that credit, whether that might be. I took a second mortgage on my home, and I was able to do that. So I funded it myself, but I had access to those resources.
Yeah.
So now that I could take a step back, probably, maybe that maybe those were things that were available to me that might not have been.
And I may have been a little bit more blessed than others because I too use credit cards and things of that nature, and it I've been blessed to have some grants and definitely some grants and loan opportunities as well. But that really resonated with me because right now I'm having conversations with an entity about the disproportionate way in which we look at the value of Black businesses to the value of what's considered white businesses.
Right.
We can always package white-owned businesses in a way that looks or feels more mainstream versus a Black-owned business that we sort of want to say is its own thing that we'll look at during Black History Month. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think one of the challenges with that is one, I would think you want Black-owned businesses to be mainstream, but on the other hand, part of being a Black-owned business is there's something special that they have that you don't want them to become like everyone else. I mean, part of what's special about them.
But mainstream, to me, mainstream doesn't mean that you lose your identity or you lose your brand.
So then, yeah.
If you're a soul food, you're a soul food. You're a soul food.
Right. That's what I mean. It's like
soul food restaurant. You're a soul food restaurant in Coral Gables. Coral Gables has got to get used to it. You know what I mean? So that it doesn't mean you have to lose your brand, but we can't live off of 28 days of people trying.
100%. Well, it starts, and I think it starts at home. I mean, one of the things, my daughter, when she was very young, the very first best friend she ever had, she met in school when they were like 2.5. Girl had the same exact birthday. She was Black, my daughter was white. They were best friends. We had birthday parties every year together. They were in each other's homes. Her parents were part of our family, vice versa. The girls loved each other. And it wasn't until they were maybe 6 or 7, someone said something to them. And it was almost like the end of innocence. And we had to explain to them, what was going on, and they had no idea, and it was heartbreaking. It was like, wow, here we
Right.
thought we're creating a whole new paradigm, but the world's still the world, and it's a harsh reality, and it's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But hopefully this next generation of kids will be brought up differently.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, what do you think you've learned that you didn't know during all of this? And of course, I know you've asked me some questions, so I'm
Yeah,
interested to see if maybe some of your friends might have some of the same questions or feel like,
right. I mean, I think so much. I think on a broad scale, some of the history, I don't think we're taught. I
Mhm.
don't think we know all the history the way most of the traditional American story is told. I think a big piece, I mean, we hear about slavery, but that's about it. I don't think
Mhm.
there's a lot of the nuance and the details that aren't taught
Right, right. And that
to.
slavery wasn't just slavery; it was Black people who were enslaved but built this country.
Correct.
And I think that narrative, the lack of that narrative,
Yeah.
set the stone of what makes us always,
Yeah.
for lack of a better way to put it, a second class citizen in this country
Yeah. And
because
one of
we
the
weren't
conversations.
credited for that.
Yes, and I remember we had a conversation months ago before all of this unrest or the recent unrest about Black men being afraid to go to a doctor because of tests that were done to men. And I did
Just
not know
being,
that. And
yeah,
I was like outraged that I didn't know. I felt heartbroken and angry. I don't even know what the words are. That how do I not? I think I'm an educated college graduate. Like I think of myself as an educated person, but I think in white America there's a void in our education,
mhm,
and it's not right. And it's important. That's why I feel like it's important for us to hear the stories, learn the history, so we have a better understanding of why people behave the way they do. Why, for example, the Black community is afraid of not all of, but we have issues with doctors and things like that. I mean, and that's one example of many.
mhm.
And I'm sure there's so many things that I don't know still, but I feel like it's important to learn.
And I appreciate and applaud that, but I also think it's very important that we have to be very unapologetic about sharing the correct story. The narratives that have been given a lot of times, unless you are African American and those stories are shared in a different way,
Yeah,
will generally put um, Black folks in a bad light or make Black folks look like they are bad people, or just not smart enough or not rich enough or not. Um, and it's that subtle separation that allows, I think about the woman who called the cops on George Floyd for what she perceived to be a counterfeit $20 bill. Um, it never occurred to her that it could have been something that was given to him.
right.
She immediately called the cops, accused him of passing a $20 bill. By the way, she was wrong. It was a real bill. It was a real $20 bill. Yes, she set into motion all of this stuff. But that struck me because that was that mindset that
Right.
the mindset that immediately her first school of thought is this Black man must be doing something wrong. And would she have had that same concept if it were you? You know what I mean?
Right.
It must have been passed on to you. There was never that question. And then that, like, just that alone,
Yeah.
then to go
Right.
into,
Yeah.
did it warrant, even if it were a counterfeit $20 bill,
Right.
what are you saying to America about the value of a Black man that he needs to die because of a counterfeit $20 bill?
Yeah.
That once again is one of those subtle hints that continues to permeate our society, and we've got to get beyond that. We've really got to start looking at people as people. And that
Yeah.
doesn't mean I be the first to say I'm not that person that is, I don't even see color. No, that's not it. That's not what we're trying to do. I'm a proud
Right.
Black woman, and I scream it from the sky, from the mountaintops. But just to really equalize, the way we equalize one another is to really be very unapologetic about what's really happening in our society, and correcting some of those little subtle
Yeah.
things that we don't,
Yeah.
we just assume, okay, he must be guilty.
Right. Right.
He must be
Right.
guilty. He might be, but that doesn't mean he needs to die. You know what I mean? Those
Absolutely.
types of things. And
Yeah.
and also the other thing I know for sure we've got to do is equal. We've got to level the economic gap. We've got to. There's just no way around it. I am amazed that we are in a society where there are groups of people, predominantly brown and Black, that don't meet the quality of life threshold when it comes to income. So every time we have some kind of catastrophic circumstance, Black and brown people are the first people to pass, to die, or be impacted or affected by it. The pandemic, COVID-19, because of pre-existing conditions, because you're in homes with several people, you can't quarantine because there may be lots of people in the home. There are all of these. I got to go to work. I can't work from home if I'm a bus driver. I can't. So there are all of these underlining income factors that play into that. I think about it, and I say all the time, Katrina, Louisiana, a lot of people, brown and Black people, died because they didn't have a car to get out of town.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you be in a society and say all lives matter when that continues to happen?
Yeah, definitely.
It just can't happen. If all lives matter, then we need to make sure all lives live equally. And then for those who excel, they're going to naturally excel and rise to the top anyway. So, you know what I mean? That doesn't have anything to do with your abilities.
Absolutely.
So, what are your thoughts about Blackout 2020? Where are you with that? And do you understand it? Are you concerned about it? Or
no, I think it's great. I think it's important. I think it's a statement. I would say to anybody who wants to buy my products, don't buy them today. Go buy something from a Black business instead. I'll be around, I wanted, at least in that way, support it. And I will make an effort to support a Black business today. I think right now there's a bit of more of a consciousness to support Black businesses, and I think that's really important. I think that's how we start to make change.
Right.
It's like, okay, am I going to go to this restaurant or this restaurant? Let's go to the Black-owned restaurant. Are we going to? Well, not go now. Let's not do that. But buy this whatever. Let's buy it from a Black-owned business. Let's make an effort to do that. It's like we talk about supporting local all the time. So this is another.
That's local.
It's local, and it's a similar thing. It's like you're supporting local because you know that they're small and they're struggling and then whatever. And we now know that the African American community needs our help. And so this is how we can help. So as a person, I can do that. And as a business, I can say, I appreciate my customers, but today, at least today, go buy from a Black business. And then now in the future, buy from both of us. There's room for everyone. It's not all or nothing. It doesn't take away from me if you support someone else.
Right. Exactly.
It's like we can bring them all together. There's room for everyone.
So do you think this momentum will continue? Because, I mean, if you look at the protests, and I think many commentators and even comedians have made comments about, most of the people out there protesting are really white folks.
I love that. I think it's so inspiring. Thank God. I mean,
and honestly, I think that's one of the reasons why it has become so robust, is because it did bring out a culture and a generation of people. It wasn't just one group of people
Right.
Because it honestly, I feel like if it just been us, yeah, once again, this
Same
country
thing.
would have said, you know, that's just,
Yeah.
you know,
It's like
but
we finally broke through a little bit. And
right,
I think
finally.
hopefully there's enough of us
Mhm.
that feel strongly enough that will keep this conversation and this movement going, whether it's protest or how we spend our money and who we vote for.
That's going to be very, very important.
And I will say, well, I did take the opportunity in my business, and it's something when the riots first started and the whole uprising, I had a meeting with my employees and I said, you know, I don't really know what I'm saying to you. I know I don't fully understand the Black experience, and I have all different cultures and races. But I said, let's have a conversation, and that, you know, I stand with you, and how can we support each other in this way? And let's talk about voting. I asked all of them to be sure they're registered. I talked about on, you know, election days, people can come late or leave early, or, you know, it's supporting that movement. Because one of the things that I have learned, or that I understand, is that, you know, African American and disenfranchised communities have a hard time voting because of work, because of transportation, because of issues. So as a small business owner, if I can do my piece in making sure they have time to go to vote, that's a small part. And what I said to them is, you know, so we're small and whatever, but if everybody's having these conversations, that's another way that the world can change.
Exactly. So, you just didn't know that was one of the challenges, because you can hop in your car and go vote, early voting, and we'll probably go early vote together. So yeah, so it's a different dynamic for sure.
Yeah.
When you're talking different issues.
And I think it's also, I think businesses taking initiative, being vulnerable with their employees, small, large, and knowing that they have a platform with their employees that's beyond the work, to talk about it or to support their right to vote. If you're a bigger company and have resources, help them register to vote.
Right.
You know? I've gotten online and helped some employees do it. You know, not everybody has a computer and things like that.
Right.
You know, it's easy and it's a way to make change.
I think you tapped on something too that I have to appreciate that you did. You asked. You know, I think, you know, part of one of the challenges in this country is we are either afraid to have those conversations, or not sure what to ask, or not sure or unconscious of that there is any other thing than what we know and understand in our heads.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think. Sorry, go ahead.
No. I was just going to say, I think, you know, just. And I know right now some people are very sensitive about, you know, I'm not going to be your encyclopedia of Black, all things African American, and everybody's got to do that the way they feel like they need to. That's me, because I feel like if you're never going to know when I'm going to tell you the truth, and I might have to tell you in a way you're not ready to hear, but you know, that's if it's not.
See, that's one of the things that I love about you, is you're honest. And you tell it like it is, and you'll tell me when I'm wrong. And that's part of why I trust your opinion so much, because you'll be like, yeah, I disagree, and this is not right. You know, you're really honest. And you're honest, and you're real, but you're kind. So it's a really,
and that's what we need right now.
Yeah, we need people like you to do that.
It's to open up the ability for people to ask some of those questions, and get the answers that they need, so we get a better understanding, and we can help support voting. And
well, and we even talked about, and this may be silly, but I remember there was a period where I was like, do you say Black? Do you say African American? I don't know which is one inappropriate? Does one feel you know, and I'm like, who am I asking that? Like, and I one day asked you, I was like, this, you know, because I don't want to be saying something to you all the time that's inappropriate, or what I would find is you avoid it. you avoid it because you don't want to make a mistake. So then you don't say anything.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
then you're just perpetuating
The problem. Exactly.
And so I feel comfortable enough saying, hey,
What am I saying? Am I offending someone?
Yeah, right. And, and I think once you start to have more real conversations, it gets easier.
We can't be afraid of each other. We've got to, in order for us to really be, to fix this problem, we can't be afraid of each other, but we've got to also take action. I think the protest has been a really good way of taking some civil action steps. We've definitely seen some changes in what is happening around the country in the police. When it comes to the police, I'm not necessarily a fan of disbanding all the police and letting us self-police. No, I don't agree with that. But to recraft what it has become and maybe base it on funding, I don't think is necessarily a bad idea, because you don't change the problem if you don't change the culture.
And I think it's interesting.
Like some money.
There are interesting ideas out there of having like healthcare workers and different types of issues, and that's really smart. It's like, why didn't anybody think of that before? Or did they? What? And
I had a conversation once with an African American officer who right now I'm pretty sure is in a really awkward situation, precarious situations. Right. But one of the things, of course, he said was, part of it's training, but part of it is, you're dealing with sometimes, if you think about our city, we have some communities that are a little wealthier. You have a young man who decides they want to be a police officer, and then you plop them in a neighborhood that all they've ever heard is that they'll die. What do you think is going to happen? How do you learn how to read the room? How do you learn how to teach? I don't know that you can teach that. How to, read the situation. How do you teach someone who may be playing RoboCop? Because I can only imagine someone that feels like they can put a knee in your neck. How do you get them to dial down the RoboCop and assess does this way the circumstances? Like that's the type of culture that has permeated for so long. So I'm very proud to see that there are several communities that have decided to undo that. But I'm also amazed that even after George Floyd, we've still had some other circumstances occur around the country. So that lets me know we've got a long way to go, because we still have cultures of that are still operating the same way. And feel as though they can get away with that. But it's a good, it's optimistic. It's a good start, I think, for the first time. I've been here for a couple of decades now. It's the first time I feel like it's a real chance for us to break the glass ceiling, so to speak, and really get some wrongs righted along the way, and have some true tales and stories come out of, situations where, Black families who owned massive land, it was taken from them. So their family wealth and generations of wealth was eradicated just by theft and legally so. Like legally done, they were legally able to take this property from them, and in some cases people's DNA, and they're using DNA to study a Black woman. I forgot her name. I want to say it's Mary Thomas. I'll have to do my research. They took her DNA and have been using it over centuries, and to test on, and oh my. So it's just those types of things that we hope. I don't think we're trying to shame anybody. It's not that at all. It's just about getting equality and being looked at as first-class citizens as everybody else. So,
and I think it's going to take everyone.
Yeah, that's true.
That's the difference. I think that's the change now, that it's not just African Americans standing up for themselves. It's now white Americans and brown and everyone else standing with them, with you, together to make change.
to make that happen.
And I think that is the turning point, and hopefully that's how we change.
I think the other thing we need to do, all of us, not just white folks, black folks too, we need to look at ourselves and say, what are some of your prejudices? You know, what are, you know, what are some of the, I mean, I think we all have it. I know I've said some stuff sometimes like, that's probably not fair. It's probably not
Not you.
probably not indicative of everybody. It's just like, but you know, but in judging whatever those things are, just really saying to ourselves, is this a just reason for me to feel this way about something or someone, or has this been handed down to me for no particular reason? Does this stem from the media? Is this just because I don't know and I'm making it up in my head? Like, and then start there. And when you look at yourself in the mirror, now you can maybe hope to try to assess if there's some truth to what you think you feel or what you think you know.
Yeah.
And start there. Just start looking in the mirror and work from there. The other thing I would say I found very interesting was the movement went across the pond. I woke up one morning and England was erupting. Germany, Holland. I was like, there are racial problems in Holland? Like it was bizarre. I was like, clearly this
the world is standing up.
An issue. So yeah, we'll see. In the middle of a pandemic, I'm at it.
Yeah, it's right. The fact that people are protesting, they're physically going out there, risking their lives in the middle of this, says a lot.
There's a statement. It makes a statement for sure. We're so mad at this point, we don't even care. So, I don't know. So that means that it's just,
it feels like a little. It feels like a step. It feels like a big step.
Exactly, and it's beyond America. It is out there in the world, places, and so it's a good time. For instance, we're becoming a global. Global. We're becoming one big country in a way. Yeah, lack of a better way to put it. It is more important now than ever that we really are closing some of those gaps and fixing some of those woes. Anything else we want to talk to them about? Tell them to fix what? Well, just before we get off, give me an update. What's going on with your business? You know, we can't leave.
We're hanging in. We're hanging in there. We're doing the best we can. I'm grateful every day that I actually have business, and working on, keeping everyone safe. We're taking temperatures every morning before anybody starts work and washing hands and doing all the protocols and just trying to keep moving, keep going forward.
Were you able to pick up any more clients or during this time? Or
I have picked up a couple of new clients, so that's exciting. Good. We've lost the restaurant business for temporarily, hopefully. So that's, helpful in these times, and, hopefully our restaurant partners will, be okay.
Right.
It's so tough. I feel for them. Like, I feel so grateful because, they're really having a hard time.
Are there any assessments at this point as to how many of them may come back?
I don't know. I don't. I'm sure there are. But now that Miami just re-shut down, at least they're keeping outdoor dining. They keep changing the game on them. I think that's part of the struggle. Like, you buy all this inventory and then they say, oh, sorry, you got to close tomorrow. That's probably, I can empathize with how difficult that is.
Yeah.
And food goes bad. You can't just put it on a shelf for a month. So that's really a challenge. And they were operating at a low capacity anyway. So I don't know. I think a lot of people are trying to pivot, but a lot of the small ones can't. They just want to do the takeout business. It's going to keep them going. And so it's hard. It's tough. And then all the people that are out of work because of that. And it's hard on them. And then people are having a tough time, so they're having a hard time at home, and it's like
it's a cycle. It's a continuous cycle. Yeah,
it's a cycle, and so I think tempers are hot. I think people are angry, and people are sad, and people are scared.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of emotion.
Absolutely.
And I feel that even in my own business, people are having a tough time, even if they don't verbalize it. They're struggling, and you can feel it or you see it in their behavior, and so you do the best you can to mitigate that stuff too. It's hard.
Do you think the federal government can do more? I think you and I have talked about
an understatement question. I mean, 100%.
I will give them kudos. They did some good initial steps.
I think they failed us. They failed us as people. There's no humanity. The humanity is the biggest thing, you know, with the racial uprising and with the pandemic. There seems to be, you know, this talk about privilege, not having any empathy for what people are going through. Not, you know, not understanding it, but then not taking the time to look at what people are going through and to actually do something about it and make sure they're taken care of. It's heartbreaking. You know, I was angry, I was heartbroken, I went through all the stages. I mean, now it's just like somebody needs to just take over and take their place. Like, I almost wish Cuomo could come and help us and save us.
You know how many people have literally made Cuomo for president signs?
Yeah, or he could just, you know, take over the pandemic. And
I feel like he's going to be right in. You know, personally, I say Fauci.
Okay, well, the two of them could go in, you know. Yeah, he's pretty great. Yeah.
So okay, well, thank you so much for having this conversation. And
thank you. Can I just ask one thing of you? Is there something that you see that, and in this moment, that I need to be aware of? Not me personally, but me, the bigger us, that maybe you can open our eyes to?
I you know, honestly, I think it'll unpack itself as we go through this.
Okay.
I guess the only thing I would really ask is that people stay open. You know, I know a lot of times when people are passionate and we're angry, and you know, there's a period of time where we're sort of, you know, ready to fight the fight and get in the trenches and do all the things, you know, the social media posts and all that stuff. But to undo a century of this is going to take some time to unravel, and we need the same amount of energy and investment and commitment, whatever that is, whatever you feel like that looks like in your realm, today, tomorrow, a year from now, 20 years from now, you know, that continued commitment. And again, that's whatever level of commitment you like to make or feel like you need to make. But stay open to the idea that this is not a quick fix. And that we all have a part to play in this, and we all have got to be committed to whatever that part is. You know, I heard a lot of people that thought that when Barack Obama became president, we'd fix this. The ceiling was corrected, and I was like, this is why I love Barack Obama, always going to be my president, but it is not resolved. Ooh, look, we got some people that are talking. TV really helps. Hey, why aren't they coming up here? I'm sorry, we have some people. Okay, so just so you know, Willem had to let me know. Melanie Shinhoster, I said it right? Who, you know, said, I love some gin. Kanemo said, can you talk about the Jewish community and the Black community similarities? Crystal Channel said it really is a hard time. And Kanemo wanted to ask, did the PPP really help small businesses? Okay, so that's a lot to unpack there. See, we were about to close it down, but we got to answer some questions. Okay, I guess we'll start with the PPP really helped some small businesses. Okay, let me give you my take on it. I think there was a good faith effort to do so, but I don't know if they did it properly. Jordan, I guess sort of just in general nature of government, there was sort of this, we're going to put this money out there and put all these stipulations on there without a real assessment of how small businesses work.
Right. Trying to payroll, it seems backwards. It makes businesses dealing with unemployment. And to be honest, that's not our job. Like, they should help the businesses,
not our job.
Help the people that don't have jobs, and leave it separate.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Let me do what I need to do and focus on operating my business. And that doesn't mean you should just give me free money without some kind of stipulations, but at least make it contingent upon what I need to do. And that happens sometimes, I might say, with if you are getting some kind of grant support or some
Right.
kind of money or loans, there are all these really sort of unrealistic asks without really looking at the group of people that you're dealing with. You know,
Yeah.
to ask people to bring back, like, for example, let's use restaurants since they are the industry that is, really
Right.
key right now, to ask them to bring back employees for what? You're not letting anybody die.
You're paying them not to work. So then the money that you got is paying other people, and great that the employees get the money, but then it does not help the business at all.
Correct.
So the business still goes out of business, and then they have to do all that paperwork.
And people are sitting around, and they could have been buying it for supplies. They could have been using it for their friends. They could have been using it for a multitude of other things. And then the other thing I also found is there were several grants and grant opportunities out there, but they all had the same stipulation: payroll. You couldn't double dip. So how does that help me? I can't, like, if I got PPP, I can't apply for the other one because it doesn't, I'm using it for the exact same thing.
Right, exactly.
So I know we were trying to react quickly. I think we've come up off of some of those stipulations I've noticed with the PPP forgiveness application. For those of you who were earlier recipients, please check with your bank, because I think the forgiveness application is now coming to be. My bank just sent me an email. I think you said, Jennifer, yours too. So please be very close to your bank to find out about that process. But there were they needed to be a little bit more work there. And then Kanima also asked about talk about the Jewish community and Black community similarities. That's a loaded question. And I wonder, do we know that?
Well, right. I mean, from my perspective, I think some of the stuff that you and I have talked about it's very cultural. It's very familial. It's, you take care of your own. I think one of the things that we're brought up in most Jewish families is, that you want to take care of each other and support each other. And I think that's a strong similarity. We both have a strong connection to food. Food is very important.
We need a lot. Exactly. It makes up every family function.
Yeah. So there's that. So it's a warmth and a caring and sometimes
also a bit of a protection too, because of where we both obviously had very traumatic histories. And came from
survivors.
What is it? The volatile history to no, fault of our own. So we had to sort of adapt to learning how to insulate as a community for survival.
So it's like banding together and taking care of each other because
absolutely. And I think also you've felt your share of, even in this country, some level of prejudice and racism as well, or
But one of the things I always kind of say to you is, yes, Jewish people are prejudiced against and whatever, but I can walk into a room and not everybody necessarily knows I'm Jewish.
That's very true.
You don't have that luxury.
That's very true.
And so I can choose to share that or not, or people can find out or whatever, but it's not so
blatant,
immediate. And I think that is one of the biggest parts of the struggle that I don't know that other people necessarily can understand. It's something I now can empathize, but I'm aware of that privilege. I guess that's the right way to say it.
It is.
So I think while the experience is very similar in a lot of ways, there's that piece in being able to move forward that I think is a little bit of a bigger burden.
And I do appreciate the fact that we can start there all around the world. I mean, again, and this is not new. The relationship between the African American community and the Jewish community has always been very supportive throughout the ages, as far as I've ever known.
Yeah.
Let's start there, just in general. Start with your
Right.
similarities and work your way out. And then if you find
Yeah.
out there are some differences, it's okay. We all
Right.
need
I mean, I think the more you learn, it's like the more we're alike,
right.
then we are
You are
different.
different.
You know, I mean, like, I consider you to be one of my best friends. Like, I think you're so special, and you know, like, we're so similar. It's
Yeah,
like,
that's true. That's true.
you know, like, it's
Because
like,
we commiserate a lot about business.
yeah.
We're like, what did you do? What am I supposed to do? Don't worry about it. Let's go sit down somewhere and get over it.
So it's like,
So
what a wonderful gift, and you've, you know, broadened my world by your worldview, and that's the thing. If everyone could embrace the gift of our friends' differences and experiences, and it helps us to grow. You know, it's
yeah.
not a
And vice versa. It's a give
Yeah.
and take. It's
Yeah.
definitely a give and take, because I will, you know, I'm kind of nosy. So as you can tell by the show. So
one of your best
I'm
ones.
not asking her questions about, now listen, tell me this. And tell me if I'm being offensive. Start there. Let's start there. So are there any other questions that came through? And I hope we answered everything. From the looks of it, we did. Thank you, everyone, for joining in. This is a very special show. And I was a little nervous about having this conversation, because
Me
it's
too.
such a weird time, but I felt like if I could have that conversation with anyone, it could be Jennifer, because we are so close, and because we have learned to understand each other as human beings, which is all we're asking. And I announced that we are going to take a bit of a hiatus. We'll be off the cycle for about a month or so, and then, but don't worry. We're going to rerun some of the shows of our past business owners who are, again, and were a wealth of information, including Jennifer's show. If you are an aspiring entrepreneur, you are definitely going to want to tune into the show, because I guarantee you everybody's given a morsel of information that's very, very, very important. So thank you again, Jennifer, for having this conversation.
Thank you very much.
That's Jennifer's Homemade. You definitely want to check out her breadsticks and
Not today.
Not today. Not today.
Check us out tomorrow.
Tomorrow. You can Google her. She's on she's at her website, on Instagram. And then, definitely, she's, amazing woman. You'll like it. We'll hang out again sometime. Thank you so much. Y'all have a great day, and everyone else have a great day. We'll see you soon. Love you. Bye.
Love you.